So I guess first off, to introduce myself, my name's Jess. I have been with SurveyMonkey for 11 years now, and I am a professional services consultant here. So I'm here to help with, essentially getting the team up to speed on using SurveyMonkey and making this change over a little bit easier. Essentially, this is a 1-hour power session. So we're going to take a look at some of the more basic features, but then moving into more advanced features based off of the information that was provided by some of the responses in your survey, along with using 2 of the surveys that Sarah provided me with examples. If you have any questions, though, this format is intended for you to pipe in, interject me, ask any questions that come to you, because I want to make sure that you're going to find this valuable for your time. So with that, I'll start sharing my screen here. And I will also be definitely looking over at my notes as well. So there's a lot of content for today's session. We may not even have enough time for all of it, but we'll see how much we're able to get through. All right, so this is an example of us coming to essentially what your main landing page is. You'll have a list of all of your surveys here. And then we also have these folders that you can create to help manage and organize your surveys. This is currently kind of in a beta situation. This is the new homepage. If you wanted to navigate back to what the original homepage looked like, if your previous SurveyMonkey experience means that you prefer this, you're able to do so. We'll go back to the new. And something that Sarah and I had discussed previously was starting things off with creating, not necessarily from scratch, but having certain branding already available for you to begin with. So we do have a thing called a library, which we can navigate towards. And you'll see here that we have a couple of options that can be included in your library. And this is something where administrators are able to add to this. So if you're like, hey, there's a certain template that I always want to use for the survey or a certain theme, maybe other question types or questions with different question types, they would be able to actually add that to the library so that you would have very quick access to this. So Sarah, you and I were discussing about the logo and the branding and how the logo doesn't, it's not included in the theme per se. However, you can create a template of a survey that includes the branding as well as a logo. In this case, we have one here for a course evaluation example. And when we preview this, what I've included was the logo, the branding, and a very quick introductory text. But if you select next, there's nothing else. So we didn't include any other questions. So this is something that they could start off with right away rather than having to also upload their logo. But we will have a new exciting thing in the pipeline, which I'll show you in a couple of minutes.
Let me jump in real quick. Just those of you that have already gotten into your SurveyMonkey, we do have a couple of templates in there already in the library, as well as our colors and themes that you can use just as a default. You're also welcome to change those, and we can go through more of that separately. But the one thing I wanted to mention too is if you're working with a group of researchers or you've got a class that's doing a project, we can create work groups in those libraries. We can have things that are specifically shared within your work group. So that's another thing to keep in mind is if you have a template that you're going to use over and over for a specific group of people, we can make that and then just make it available to those people, not to the whole college.
Can I ask a quick question on this point? So I'm not interested personally in learning how to write a survey. I'm using a validated existing research study survey. So I don't need to create, and I'm not worried about branding. So I'm mostly just doing this for research, and I have a couple projects that I'm going to have to transfer over from Qualtrics. So how much am I going to have to rely on administration to create my work groups for me? Or do I have control over, I have this one project and I need these students to have access? Or am I always gonna have to put in a request to say, will you make this for me? And then separately, since I'm not gonna be, I don't work, like branding is not something I'm interested in. If I just need to deal, input all this, convert all of my surveys, is that something I can do independently, or am I gonna be putting in requests to have other people do this? I'm just a little confused about the big picture.
So both and is the answer, which I know is clear as mud. If you have specific surveys that you need to get in quickly and you want me to put those in for you, all I need is to know which of the Qualtrics ones they are, and I can work on transferring those over. If we come into any issues where things aren't working exactly the same, then I can reach out to you and we can talk about that. In terms of putting stuff in yourself, you can definitely do that. It's set up right now so that you have automatically, it'll put it into a Wesleyan template anyway, so you don't have to worry about branding or anything like that. It'll already be set, but you can also remove it if you don't want the branding in. And then in terms of the work groups and students will have access in the same way that you all have access. It'll be based on their email, so they'll get the same information that you received for you to get started. Then once they're in, that will be something from the work group we'll have to create if you want it to go within a specific group. The other option is you can share the survey or the template that you're creating with that individual, and that's something you can definitely do on your own. So we can talk more about the specifics of what that will look like broader as we start getting in and getting surveys in and figuring out, what people are going to be using it for.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question. All right, and yeah, I don't have anything on the agenda in terms of creating survey designs, the research questions. I figured you already are well above most people in terms of how to create a good survey. So yeah, there's nothing like that for today's agenda. But yeah, to move forward to create a survey though, we do have that create survey action button at the top right here. So we do have a number of options starting from scratch, copying existing that's already living within SurveyMonkey so that you can just make edits to a survey that's already there. Build with AI, we'll go back to momentarily, but we're actually going to move to the template area first. So as Sarah was also mentioning, we do have the option of you being able to include those templates. And you can filter by selecting theme template, which is the first one here. So you would see the list of all the templates that would be specific for your team or your work group. Additionally, we do have a number of other templates that are written by our survey experts as well. So you can poke around to see what it is that you need here. It's quite robust depending on the situation that you're looking for. Going back to create survey, one of the new experiences we're offering now is this build with AI option. So, I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise to you. I'm sure Qualtrics was doing something similar, where essentially you can create a prompt and then that will help develop a survey design based off of what you're looking for. So there's a number of examples at the top here for the different types of use cases we see most often. But let me see here. I've got one kind of already set up. And this prompt was create a survey for college students about their study habits. So you can actually preview all of this first to make sure that some of the questions look pretty good. And just because you're like, hey, this is actually missing an option to say, they don't ever study, that's okay, because if we were to continue with this, it will allow us to create this survey with these questions, and then all of these questions are editable for us to update and apply other answer options to. All right, so Sarah, something that's going to be coming down the pipeline and depending on the needs of the group, it's currently under an experiment right now, so I have that with my account, but it's called Brand Your Survey or Generate with Theme with AI. So by doing this, we can actually upload an image for the logo. So I stole one from one of the surveys here. And we could select generate theme. And you can see here we have, the color options, we have certain layouts. So you can essentially do that all in one go. So if that needs to be applied to any account before it's actually released to the general audience, just let me know. All right. So now we have a baseline of, some very standard questions, and each of these questions are able to be adjusted by selecting that edit option. So right off the bat here, you can see it's a multiple choice question type, and we can also add other and a none of the above options. Or I don't study. All right. So while this is all great, something about SurveyMonkey, which is maybe a little bit different compared to other form builders, is for logic to be applied, it needs to happen currently on a new page. So same page logic isn't currently set up within SurveyMonkey just yet. It is something that they're looking at to incorporate in the future. But if you wanted any questions to show or hide based off of answer from a previous question, you would have to insert a page break. So by hovering in between two different questions on the same page, you can see you have that option to select from there. There we go. All right. So from here, you can also clearly see that we are able to incorporate new questions. If we select this, we do have an adaptive typing option. So as an example, you can ask, what is your age? It's predicting, and we're going to be offered 5 suggested questions. And you can see here, what is your age ? And this is the certified SurveyMonkey question for that particular type. So this is all coming from our question bank. This is something that as a team, you are also able to incorporate your own questions to your own question bank as well. This would also be stored within your library. So as an example, if you wanted to incorporate this question to your library, you would be able to select library and then add the specific tag. So depending on what your research needs or the use case it should be associated with, you can add the tags in order to then filter out. So when you come back to a new survey or you want to incorporate new questions, you would have your own team question bank, which is at the top here. So this is an example. We only have 4 in ours. And then we have the SurveyMonkey question bank. So all of these are specific questions that have been designated with specific tags for different use cases. And then, of course, we have recommended questions, which will usually incorporate metrics like CSAT, like the customer satisfaction score or a net promoter score. In order to use this, you can certainly drag and drop on the preview here. Usually it works. There we go. And you can add to insert into your survey design. So far, that's pretty straightforward. Any questions? All right. Another thing that you would be able to do as well into each of these lines is you can incorporate an image or a video. So I wouldn't say that this happens very frequently, but if you do have a situation where you would want to create maybe a matrix with columns and rows and incorporate, smiley faces or different products that you're doing research on, you would be able to drop an image into here from your computer in order for that to appear in your survey design. Additionally, we have an example here where I'm using an A/B test in order to show different introductions to the survey. So a use case for this would be trying to kind of incentivize, a higher participation rate. Maybe you have text that would be much, much shorter versus long. That's something that you're able to do with a lot of our questions within SurveyMonkey. It's a lot of text. So what we do also offer is the option to incorporate a label to make things a little bit easier for you when it comes to the analysis afterwards. All right, going back to this new one here. Under more actions, if you need to require all of your questions very quickly, we do have this option to select require questions, and everything on this page here is now going to be marked as required. What doesn't work exactly well would be a matrix question. So do rows. I'll just add a test. For the row labels, we can copy and paste different row labels. So say apples, bananas, oranges. I'll just say rate fruits. And by default, we do have weights associated with this. The matrix option is the only one that would allow for you to actually manually manipulate the weight. So if you wanted to flip the scales or anything like that, you're able to do that. And in your analysis and export, that numeric value will be available.
So Jess, I have a question. This is Nikita. You talked about the large amount of text inside of the survey, which is what a lot of my questionnaires will be. They'll be like applications, things like that. So from what I've worked with SurveyMonkey, just playing around with it for the last week or so, I don't see where I can add a lot of text out. I don't see where I can add a lot of text. Is that something that you will go through and go over for us so we can?
Sure. Yeah, I can show that to you right now as well, actually.
Can I ask you a question about the matrix before you leave that?
Yeah.
Sorry, okay, I just want to, before we move on.
No worries.
I was playing around with this matrix earlier myself, right? And what I could not figure out is with the columns and rows, it just has the check the boxes here. But what if I wanted to have text entry within the matrix for like a column?
We don't offer that option, unfortunately.
Okay. Okay. I was trying to replicate and I just couldn't figure out. All right, sorry. Go back.
Yeah, no, great question. And yeah, before we move on to that as well, if we were to go back to require all the questions here in this matrix now, it shows with the little asterisks, but something to note is this options, it says at least one, which means like it's usually not what most people need. Usually it's all rows they want an answer to. So you would have to just manipulate the options to make that required for all rows. For multi-line text, we do have that option. Multiple text boxes would be probably the closest to what you're looking for, Brian. So if you select that here, you know, you'd have your question and then you would give the labels for them to insert the actual text in. So you won't have multiple columns, but you would have multiple rows. So it gets you a little bit closer to what you're looking for. But yeah, great feature request. And then for the large text and the introductions. So when we go, we have a couple of different options here. Under options itself, this page titles, sometimes if this isn't on by default, you have to enable this. And then when you select page title, you can actually insert this page description as well. Page titles are really nice because this will update from page 1, page 2, etc., to the specific headers of your survey. So even if you don't want that to be seen by the respondent, you can enable it, add a title, and then disable the page titles, but you'd still see it internally. If you want large text, you can use that page description. This here is an advanced editor in order for you to kind of do that rich text option here. And additionally, if you don't want any of the page titles at all, or if you want both, if you scroll all the way down in this build section, you'll see one that says text. So you can drag and drop that wherever you need in your survey.
That's helpful.
So yeah, so while it looks like it's one line, you still have that advanced editor option. And again, you can actually insert an image or a video in this as well.
And Dakisa, just to jump in real quick, because depending on how you, if you've used SurveyMonkey before, there's lots of different ways to get to the same things too. So like I don't ever use that build kit, which I probably should, but you can also get to that just on your survey. When it at the bottom, it'll tell you to you know, for a new question, to click up a new question, and it gives you a drop down. You have to scroll down, but there's actually like underneath a line where you can do text, you can do images, and that's where you can really put in a bulk amount of text. So I'm happy to walk you through that at some point too, if you need.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions at the moment? No, we're okay. All right. So some things as well to be aware of is you do have the ability, especially from research under options, to decide to randomize, sort, or flip rows. So this is the thing that is quite helpful to try to prevent any bias within your survey responses. So we see this often used. And as we were just talking about the A/B test, on these, most questions, you would be able to select that as well to enable question text A/B, and then kind of go from there. So you would just decide what the question title should be for A or B, and then you would be able to also decide the percentage of your respondents that should be seeing that. Here you'll also notice that we have the option of making this a single row rating scale. So again, this is going to be useful if you only have one question versus multiple rows. And if you want to essentially ensure that you have a specific weight associated with that. A standard multiple choice is always going to have the first choice being a weight worth of 1 for the however number of choices you have. Additionally, this is going to show as only like, this is only going to show from left to right versus the vertical here. All right. Also in options, we do have the ability for you to enable a progress bar. I don't really like those, to be honest. But in some certain situations where you have surveys that are very long, it is nice to have. And then we do have the ability under logic to incorporate page randomization and question randomization along with block randomization. So I believe Qualtrics, does blocks quite often as well. Like, that's a feature that they're proud of. We have that as well. So all of these you could enable in order to help with deciding how you'd want to show your survey off, if it's different page views in different orders, or if it's specific blocks of your survey for that research. I think the MSNE, there might have been like a block mention within that document. So you can add multiples in there in order for it to be a very, very tailored survey. We do also have quotas. So this is something where essentially the survey will stop with receiving responses based off of how they have answered. So if you want to only select how many, what is your age, and you want the group of 18 to 24 to only be 100, you're able to do that. We also do have targeting options using our audience panel, which is more of a market research situation where you're actually paying for responses, but that's usually a very self-serve thing within SurveyMonkey. Right. So we'll actually go back and also look at the text box here. So we do have a single text box and a comment box. And as mentioned, we do also have that multiple text boxes, which are single boxes. So text example, A, B, and C. This is the question type where if you're dealing with any sums of anything, you would be able to incorporate that by selecting only allow numerical data. You can decide to require a fixed sum as well. And then we do have, you know, this error message that appears that is customizable if you prefer. However, a lot of people also use these texts to specify specific length, if it's a whole number, decimal, or a date or an email address. So our comment boxes are a little bit bigger, but they don't allow for any of these other additional validations on that question type. All right. Any questions on that? Oh. Okay. I believe under the Zeke's project demo, so this is one of the examples that Sarah provided in advance. We also have slider type here. So this is a little bit different as well. I believe the example that was provided, it specifically listed out the different intervals in order to, or like the scaling options from 500 to 1,000. That's not quite visible in the same way as I saw in the document. But under options here, you could see that we have the ability to adjust the slider scale. So typically this is like 0 to 100 by the default. So we've changed that to 500 to 1,000, and the step size is 50 in order to make that mimic the same type of rate sliding scale that you had in Qualtrics. Okay. So I do have this course evaluation example. This is something that I had created to kind of illustrate a couple of different options. One of those, we do have the ability to pipe information. So we can pipe information from either previous questions or from what we refer to as custom variables or custom data. Now, custom variables and custom data are associated with the different types of distribution methods that we have in SurveyMonkey with our URL web link or an email being sent off to your respondents. Both allow options to capture additional information that would be tied to the response and can be piped into your survey to make it a little bit more personalized. You can also certainly provide the previous answer, the answer to a previous question at any point in time in the survey. So say if I wanted to pipe something in this here, we actually can't at the moment because there's responses. Let me see if I could find. Okay, this is another, the MSME example. So if they selected A or B, we want to actually show them that what they've selected. We can insert text from previous questions, and then you can select that question there. So you can see we've got the brackets Q1 for the answer for question 1, and then you could copy and you can paste that pretty much anywhere else in the survey after.
Jess, could you walk through that one more time? Because I think, at least for me, your screen was lagging from what you were talking, so I was having trouble following.
Oh, my apologies. Say if you wanted to show that they have selected the answer choice in this question, so A or B. Another use case often is if you're doing a net promoter score or a satisfaction score, you might want to follow up with a question saying, can you please explain your score of X? And you would be able to then pipe the selection that they made in the previous question. You can select the text or the other question, and you can see this insert text from dropdown. And then you have the option of being able to choose from previous questions, contacts, or custom variables. So the previous question is that Q1, what strategy would you like to play? And by selecting that, this will pipe in whatever selection that answer choice to that question 1.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. The contacts and custom variables, that appears more like this here. So we have that custom.cr and custom.n. Those are custom variables, which we use most often when we're dealing with web links. So this allows for you to just provide a link. You can use a mail merge feature to essentially incorporate things like their course name, the course number, and student ID, any information that you'd want to have associated with their response. And then that way you can update the survey with this information, but you can also use it for your analysis. And then in this survey as well, we have a carry forward option here. So in this question, we have a number of checkbox selection options. And in the follow-up question, again, it has to be on a separate page here. We've created a matrix. And by going to new question and selecting matrix/rating scale, you'll have this option of use previous answer choices, carry responses. So if we select that, then have the option of being able to select from any of the previous questions. We can remove these 3 rows here, and then it will show the list of all of the options. And then you can determine if it's selected by respondent or if it's unselected by respondent. So that's what we're seeing here. So in this example, if I only selected required textbook and professor's lecture slides, I'm only going to be asked to rate required textbook and professor's lecture slides. Everything else would be hidden for me. And if I selected none of the above, this question is completely skipped automatically. You don't need to do anything. Okay. Now, the only thing as well is because of the nature of this type of situation, if you are dealing with block randomization, carry forward questions are not supported. Okay. The next part is going into actually going through and applying the logic and how we can use the advanced branching logic to show and hide questions, make things a little bit more complicated, but easier for the respondent. So do we have any questions before moving forward? All right. So I'm unsure about Qualtrics logic, but in terms of the SurveyMonkeys, essentially the single most common point of failure for complex logic is trying to build it on a survey that is still in flux. If you add, delete, or reorder, after your logic is in place, you very well may be breaking the pathways you've created. When you do delete a page, you are deleting the logic with it. So our strong recommendation is to have the survey fully written, reviewed, structured before you start applying the logic. A lot of people will have their entire survey programmed into the platform before moving forward with any of the logic. My personal workflow, I will put in the questions and that I know will need the logic, and then I'll actually just add the logic right away, and then I'll carry forward with the rest of the survey. So I kind of build out as I go, but the survey design should already be finalized so that there's no surprises. SurveyMonkey does have a number of different options in terms of logic. So on every question, you'll see that you have this little logic button here. And this is something where you would be able to decide if you'd want to skip based off of a certain answer to that question. That's great if you're a basic user of SurveyMonkey, but it's not something that you actually need to use when you're with your enterprise plan here. What we have available is advanced branching logic, which you can navigate to in a couple of different ways. So on every page, you have this page logic. and you can select advanced branching logic. Additionally, what you can also do is go to logic at the top left here, and you will see advanced branching logic. And if you have any rules, it will show as on. So this is going to be really helpful because it will be kind of like the hub containing all of your rules in order to quickly see what's applied. So if we were to have applied any logic on a question basis, this would not be included under the advanced branching logic here. So the recommendation is to kind of keep everything contained in, you know, the one area, which would be the advanced branching logic. So our logic, it's a forward moving only. And so we kind of like to say, think of your survey as a river. The current only flows one way. A respondent can jump forward from, say, page 3 to page 5, but you can't create a rule that sends them backwards from page 5 to page 3. So there's no cyclical rules that would trap a respondent in like that loop. So that's also something to keep in mind in terms of how to structure your survey. We do have the option of being able to loop an entire survey though. So if you would have a kiosk situation or a tablet where you're just collecting form information, it would automatically essentially go back to the beginning of the survey. And that's a collector setting, not within the survey design itself. Another thing to note as well is that we don't, the back button essentially would allow for a respondent to make updates to a question that has already been associated with a question that contains a response, and it would still maintain that response. So as an example, if there is logic that has a question about their study habits, let me see if we can go back here. I'll delete these here. And we'll just put some logic together. All right, page logic, advanced branching, new rule. If we say how many hours do you typically study each day, we want to say perhaps is one of, or is not, I don't study. We have a couple of different options here. We then have actions on the right-hand side here. So we can decide if we would want to skip to a specific page, end the survey, disqualify the respondent. If you're purchasing any audience responses, disqualifying would not be included in that purchase. So any screening questions, essentially you'd be using the disqualify as an option. Or you would hide or show certain questions or pages. So if how many hours is not, I don't study, then we would want to perhaps show all of the pages that we have afterwards. We would save that rule and apply. So by doing that, we're automatically already creating like the opposite rule, right? So if they do select I don't study, we're not going to show page 2. At that point, the survey is going to be done. And we can test this by previewing the survey. All right, so if I select 1 to 2 hours, not too sure what happened there. One to two. I don't have not seen that before. I'm sorry. Give me a second here. Wonder what's going on. One to two. Next. There we go. We have our follow-up questions. If we go back, well, actually, next. My apologies. This is very new to me. This should not be happening right now. The idea is if I select 1 to 2, you do see that next page. If I were to select, say, reading textbooks, and then I were to navigate back using that back button, and then I select I don't study, then despite me having selected I don't study, I still have a response to question number 2, which means the data is not clean. It's just something for you to essentially be aware of as you're looking at your analysis. I will say it doesn't happen very often with respondents doing that, but it's just to be aware of it. And we do have the ability for you to filter on different variables, different answer choices within your analysis, so that you're getting the exact responses that you need, as well as the option of being able to disable that button on the collector itself.
Yeah, perfect.
Sorry,
That's what I was going to jump in and just say, Jess, is that if you're concerned that happens, you can have it so that the previous or the back button does not display.
Yeah. And to do that, that is based off of our collector options here. So in this example here, I've got 3 different collectors on my survey, and they're all web links. These do also incorporate custom variables. If I go to the baseline, we scroll all the way down here, you will see this response editing. So by default, it's on. Respondents can change their answers on any survey page. So you would just simply select off. They can't change their answers. So we're removing that back button altogether. But that is on a collector basis. So you would just have to ensure that you're incorporating that depending on the number of collectors that you have, which you can copy each one as well. So for the, yes, this one here, MSNE example, I don't know if the owner of this study is on the call right now, but we had recreated a little bit of this, where essentially it's fairly straightforward logic. Again, I'll go to this logic button and select advanced branching logic here. Round 1, you could see question 1 equals choice 1. We're showing the text, sorry, you lost, let's play again, which is on the follow-up page. And then if it's choice 2, which is B, then we're showing congratulations. And this was a survey where it was just multiple rounds of that. So we have round 1 and round 2. And then again, in order to incorporate that for round 3, we would go to page logic, advanced branching, new rule. You would find that question. So this would be question 3. Is exactly A. And then you would show the specific text that you'd want to show. So again, you'd want to test this using that preview. You can also create a web link and test this out as well, and then clear all of your test responses afterwards. But if I select A, you're going to see, sorry, you lost, let's play again. Also, this is where you'd be able to see how your survey would look if it's on a tablet or a phone as well. So you have those options. And you'll see as well in many of these areas, you'll have the option of being able to share the survey for review and add comments to each of the questions. So if this for some reason requires some attention, or maybe the large text in the course design, we have a comment here already on the text. You can see here we've got 1. If I was to select it, it actually navigates over to where that comment resides. And here I can actually, at a person, and then you'll see the list of people on the team appear. But Sarah, you've already shown yourself as well that you can actually share surveys externally too. So it doesn't have to be on your team, which is really helpful. And in order to do that, you can navigate back to your home. There we go. And we can decide to go to the ellipses. We have this share option. And you can just start typing someone's email here. You can also decide if you want them to reshare the survey. So you can decide, that permission right away, where if you don't want them to get other people to have access to it, you don't need to select that. And then you would choose the permission access level. So if you need to give them full access, just analysis, or if you want to get very specific with the type of access they have in the different areas. So the design, collect, and analyze. So if you're collecting responses across multiple people on one survey, just know that you can't make any edits to a different person's collector. So if Sarah and I are sharing a survey and I've sent out an email, and I'm like, oh no, I want to do a reminder, Sarah can't go into that collector and send out the reminder. It belongs to me as the contacts reside in my account. So just to kind of keep that in mind when you're managing. Additionally, when you're looking at the analysis, when you're adding filters, there's no undo buttons. So if you were to delete a view that someone else has created, there isn't a way to retrieve that. And likewise with the survey design. So if there's multiple people working on it, I would recommend just organizing that so you're not working on the same thing, the same views at the same time, because you could be coming up against some issues there with different actions happening.
Yes, can you really quickly just toggle over to the grid view so that, because they might see the grid at first. So when you get into SurveyMonkey, if yours starts looking like this when you're making them, that's just a quick switch back and forth. But I didn't want you to think you didn't have the same same platform that she's using.
Yeah, great call out. I do have usually a lot more surveys listed here, so I tend to go with this list view. To be honest, I'm still getting used to the new homepage. It's been so many years where I've had the default one. So, but I think with the time that we have remaining right now, oh, actually, there's the Zeek program that I wanted to show as well with the logic. So here, this is that slider scale as well. And we do have logic, which is allowing us to show what is your reservation price? Is it less than that specific number? And then we're shown the question or the follow-up text that's related to that. So we do have is less than, and we do have is greater than or equal to, is less than or equal to, a number of different options here when it comes to numerical values. So you can get pretty specific there. Our logic is Boolean logic, so you can add multiple conditions, as many as you pretty much need. However, they are and or options. You can't do both. So you can add multiple options of different, a number of different advanced branching rules. We say that there isn't a limit. There is a certain point in time where you may hit a limit, but that's like 600 questions of a survey, extremely advanced logic. I've only seen that happen once in my 11 years here. So I wouldn't expect anyone to hit it, but you can get quite advanced between the different options here. And all of the logic is top-down order. So if you needed to move the order, you can decide to do that. Okay. Yeah, we have about 9 minutes left. I will also show you on this here, the advanced branching logic. So these custom variables which is under logic variables. These will be appended to the URL of your survey. So these are the labels, and then you have the variable name, which would actually be the value that you would see within the link itself. These can be used in logic as well. So you could see custom M, which is like the milestone, 1, 2, or 3. We'll show the specific page. So we're asking specific questions for the baseline, the mid-semester, and the end for a course evaluation. And then the specific course itself allows for us to show specific text or specific questions as well. So in this situation, I do have those 3 different collectors for baseline, mid, and final. If I was to copy this URL and paste it, wondering if I can, oh, this doesn't really work. So the CR, if we do biology, chemistry, we can actually have these 2 separate options be inserted here. And the logic will still apply if we're using a contains rule. Then we have a number, and the milestone is being number 1. So we're seeing one of the A/B tests for the long intro. Next, we have a course-specific question to show if biology or chemistry. And then you can see here we are typing in that information coming from the custom variable. So we'll actually go into analyze real quick. So skipping over from design to collect to analyze, this is what it looks like in terms of your summary. Now your charts here are actually going to look a little bit different. So this is kind of a preview into a new chart design that will be introduced pretty soon. It's already hitting some accounts. There is one noted bug, though. I'm wondering, do I have an example? For rating scales from like strongly disagree to strongly agree, it currently is being alphabetized in the chart versus the answer choices. So that's going to be updated before it actually hits most accounts. So just for everyone to be aware of there. Here we do have an option of being able to do sentiment analysis. So you can enable that where it would automatically try to gauge what the sentiment is. And soon we will have a thematic analysis, which is an AI capability to essentially tag using the rules that you develop for the comments and open-ended text. And very soon in this quarter, you'll also have access to Analyze with AI, which will allow for you to enter prompts for very quick insights into your studies. So while all that's great, you know, this is essentially a view that is all of your responses, which may not be overly helpful if you're trying to segment your data in different ways or see in different milestones. So we do have filters and compare rules and show rules as options to make your analysis easier. So in filter, you can filter by question and answer. That's the most popular. You can filter by collector. The custom variables, that's where we could pull, say, that course. And we can then filter. It is case sensitive. And apply. And now we have a small number of answers in comparison to the rest. Additionally, we do have the ability to compare. So this is really helpful. Again, if you're going to have any A/B tests, you could do that. But using your collectors in an effective way would be creating the different segmentations, because we do have the option of being able to compare by collector. So with that baseline, mid, and final, you can apply those rules to see how each question that's being asked that's the same across those 3 segments would appear. Any questions on that? Or any specific situations that you'd like to go over? I know we're getting a little closer on time, so there's a bit more detail, but Sarah, maybe we could have another session.
Yeah, what I'm thinking is that I'll reach out to all of you when I send out the recording, and I'll also have a feedback survey to get some more info from you. And then I can, if you'd like, we could meet one-on-one and kind of go over specifically your questions that you have for what you're hoping to accomplish. And then I can take that information back to Jess and we can figure out if there are targeted areas we want to do group training on, or if we want to do some individual training so that we can make sure we get you set up to hit the ground running.
I'm curious, is anyone doing surveys in other languages?
I don't think on anybody that's on this call. We do have where I could see it is with our study abroad group. They often collect data from the participants in their programs and maybe the languages.
Perfect. We do have like a multilingual option to incorporate into the survey. So yeah, just wanted to make sure that's all good. Yeah, so I can talk a little bit more about email invitations. We do have the option when you add in your contacts, you can have 1 to 50 number of custom data points on that email, so that you could actually remove all PII from your survey response. So it won't capture their first name, last name, email address with the response, but it would incorporate any of the custom data fields that you would want to have. So it kind of helps with your analysis. And with any of your data, you can decide to save as. We do have a dashboard option, which is a little bit more manual to add on your slides. We do have a thing called a shared data link, which will take exactly what you see here and create a page. Both dashboards and shared data links can be password protected and shared externally. They don't need a SurveyMonkey account to access. And then of course, you have the option of being able to export. The summary data as the default selection, but I find most people really want the all response data, which would be 1 row per response. And then you do have the option of XLS, CSV, SPSS. I know is quite popular for researchers. PDF is not able to be manipulated, so I don't see that often used, but yeah, and then you'd be able to decide if you want the current view, which would incorporate any filters that you have on place, or the original view. And then our filters can be complex as well. You do have the option of being able to combine multiple filters together, which is an enterprise only feature. And then we do have a crosstab report that you could create, but it's very limited. I feel like most people would rather export and then work with it in like R or SPSS, like in the actual program, one cross, that kind of thing.
Maybe one quick thing to mention for those of you that do more just feedback surveys, or you're not necessarily needing to keep all of the survey information, confidential. You can connect your survey to Google Sheets or Excel or whatever your preferred platform is. If you're wanting to just get that raw data directly, it's super easy. And once you get that first response, it'll just automatically update as responses come in. So that's a nice feature that you can incorporate if you're just, if you prefer to work in something else, but you use SurveyMonkey to design the surveys, but you could still then have your data in a Google form or a Google Sheet. So those are options as well.
That's a great call out. We're a big Google Sheets team over here.
Mm-hmm. We're at the end of our time. So if you have any other questions, you can shoot me an email, or like I said, I'll be sending out a feedback survey, and then we'll get in touch with Jess about follow-up training, and we'll be offering several trainings in the coming months. But as always, if you have any specific questions, just reach out to me or Rick, and we can get you moving on what you need.